everyone hear me?
Yes.
Some people at the back?
Yeah.
Great. My name is Suresh, and thanks for a great introduction. It's a pleasure for me to come here and speak. Is it better?
Yeah.
Can you hear me at the back?
Yes, I can.
Okay. If you can't see me, I can't help it. So, just as Jagan mentioned that after a long time in the industry, it always becomes very tough. What do you really want to do, right? And where do you want to go? So, cut here.
This is a
Hello?
Yeah.
Is this not
Sorry.
So, I did started thinking what really I wanted to do. I just got bored of managing large teams and then building products, doing the stuff, and then there will be 10,000 people asking me questions which they really don't understand. So I decided that I wanted to do something on my own, and that's when I came out of Passenger. Of course, I did some planning for myself so that I don't have too many rainy days to see. And that is something that as anyone wants to get into entrepreneurship, they really have to think about because you don't know when things will start getting. Initially I started off doing something on human analytics. My whole idea was that when I was in the corporate world, I was used to, every morning I work 6 hours, I not 6 hours, 5 minutes, 6 hours, end of the day you have to do all of it. You need to have a context of problem, impact, and things like that. So I started applying analytics and machine learning algorithms and trying to make a lot of sense of emails and give the email entities to users that in the morning you come and you know that 5 messages that you really need to address today. And things like that I started working on. It started going on well, and then when I started talking to people for the purpose of emails and things like that, I realized it was going to be difficult for me to get funded sitting out of India. And these are the kind of startups mostly will happen in the area and things like that. People may not take solution to this. That was a time when I met with one of my old colleagues. His name is Prashant. I don't think I know his line about him. And he, after Oracle, he was invited to B school and then he started working in the finance industry. And he started came up with this idea of personal finance product. He was a chief investment officer at Churning, and his manager portfolio of 500 crores and things like that. So he also said that enough is enough. He wanted to do something. He and along with one of his friends came and we decided that we wanted to get started on. And that's how we got started. So initially we were kind of thinking what we really wanted to do. We started talking to people and then trying to figure out what all things are happening within the finance industry. The reason we chose finance industry is that one of our first co-founders came in, he had that background and he knew what is happening. The biggest thing was that the reach of banking industry is pretty poor in a sense. For example, I don't think, for most of the people who have a wealth manager assigned to me like this 25 lakh bracket income, right? Before that, one time, no wealth manager will come to you. It doesn't mean that those people are not required by banking industry to be served, but just they don't have a kind of a reach that is really required. They can't get on with their existing brick-and-mortar structure and the banking structure. They can't get on with it, right? Then we started thinking, and then we started looking around, and we wanted to do the personal finance management product. And then when we started talking to people, we realized that finance is not an easy subject that most of the people will like it, right? People will do it unless something is breaking, right? Something You will go to a bank only when you need a loan and things like that. So we wanted to create a product that will engage people all the time. Right? We wanted to create a product that people will feel comfortable having in their pocket as an app all the time. And that's where we started working on, and we realized that after talking to people and things like that, maybe we could create something that would put a lot of intelligence within the product, right? So that the person's burden of understanding the finances is taken off, right? And leave the people who are sitting in this room who are very analytical and things like that, but the people on the street, right? Those people who are working and mostly in sort of the services where income between 1 lakh to 10 lakh or even beyond that. They can't easily deal with numbers so easily, right? Somebody comes and, hey, take this credit card, this has the APR of this and this and this, and he doesn't realize what does it really cost him when he doesn't pay something on time, right? He doesn't realize that by the way of late fees and next this thing. I mean, we met people who had initially taken just swiped their credit card for a few transactions, and the transaction became so big, and that for years they had been paying by EMIs, right? So we realized that we can actually build a lot of intelligence for understanding the person's financial behavior, and we don't want to intend to change the behavior of the person, but actually help him out as a good friend by way of giving out good suggestions and everything. So with that intention, we started the product. Thankfully, we were able to raise initial funding of from seed funding from mostly sort of friends and families or this. So that, and then when we were, so the idea of putting all the intelligence in a tool and the person not having to work, understand anything about the finances and make it simplified, did Google also liked it, and that's how they decided that. They chose about 14, I think about 18 companies in India out of the 1,000 plus companies that had applied, and we happened to be amongst them. That was a great stuff for us to getting selected. Also a kind of an telling the fact that, okay, this idea is going to work and there are people are willing to look at it. Okay. And as we have been talking to investors, we do see a lot of interest and enthusiasm happening now. And so that's our journey so far. And all that I can say is that if you really want to do something, time is best, really right. I don't know how long this time is going to stay around, right? Because whether you like it or not, any sort of a market, any sort of innovations like, I mean, whether in 2000 or later, it is a cycle of boom and bust, right? And then even to do your great idea, great innovations, if you are in 2001, nobody is going to give you money. And you have an excellent product idea and you really have done good work and you know that it can sell. But in 2001, if you are going and asking for a funds, nobody is going to give you. Right? So this is probably the best time, right? I don't know how long this time is going to last. If you are thinking about it, just go and jump from there, right? Okay. So let's quickly get started. This one?
That's it. Dual chip. Dual chip, right?
Oh, I need to find the Okay, so quickly looking at so my talk is today going to be centered around what is really banking. I mean, most of you know banking, what it is, right? But what is the technology changes that are happening, and how is banking is getting disrupted? I mean, to be really saying it is going to get disrupted, and we ourselves see that in years to come, banking will not remain the same as it is today. It's not to mean to say that existing banks will go away. They are trillion-dollar balance sheets and things like that. They are not going to go away. But the whole scene will change, right? And it will be led by mostly all will be the entrepreneurs and the new-age technology companies is what is going to be. So if you really look at the banking, there are three areas. One is the non-banking part of the stuff, which is an extension, basically your equity, capital market, debt market, and all the stuff that they do. mergers and acquisitions. So that's not really, I'm not saying that that's going to be disturbed much. There are some innovations mainly to do with crowdsourcing funding and things like that in terms of how to raise funds and how to raise this thing. So there are innovations that are happening. And then obviously there are other things, the innovations that banking keeps doing all the time is the financial innovations, like debt swaps, this, that, this, and one instrument on top of that, another instrument on top of that, another instrument, and then you have the crisis, right? So that's what banking is very good at doing these innovations, but not so much based on the technology. And then the main core of the banking is about deposits and payment. What do you do ultimately? You go to the bank. Banks actually gets money from short-term deposits and converts it into long-term borrowing. They can borrow it in long-term, and obviously you have regulations and things like that to make sure that they don't go haywire and do this, right? And their key function is to get distinct deposits and distribute loans, right? And then make money out of that. So obviously you have various kinds of credits, and right from your credit card to your home loans, there are various spectrums of the loans and things like that will have. And you also look at the bank as a secure way of depositing your money, and you can take care of your money. Right? And that function will remain with the banks. Right? It's not that I don't think the new company will come up and say I'll take all your money, and then the regulation will not allow you to do such as that. So even the innovations on the deposit side will, though happen, will ultimately be riding on top of an existing banking license. Okay. And then the non-banking is more to enable the transactions, right? You go, you swipe your card, you pay money to somebody else, you give a check, and you do all sort of things. So basically, banking enables you the transaction, to do transactions. So by way of payments, foreign exchange, and so many other things.
Sir, first last slide. Is there any startups or any innovation happening in that liquidity data or capital markets?
So I'll quickly touch upon that. Okay, first of all, let me do a disclaimer. I'm not a banker, right? I'm a technologist. I happen to be in this area, and I do have a lot of interest in this thing. But there are innovations that are happening mainly to do with how the crowdsourcing funding happens and things like that, right? Not so much. In the Indian context, yes, there are a few companies who are trying to do crowdsourcing and things like that. How effective they have been or not, don't know. You might have also heard about this Runday and things like that, who are trying to create a social, you can pool money and then do that sort of crowd enabling the volunteering work and those sort of stuff. There are a few companies who are doing the crowdsourcing funding. And if your question is if you want to create something on your own, or if you're looking for investments and things like that, so there are few, but I don't know how well they are able to look at that, both in terms of people who are giving money and taking money. Okay, so application of technology in banks, right? Nothing new, right? I mean, banks, first thing you will see is that they have done internet banking, they have done mobile banking, right? And most of the technology they have been using is backend processing, right? They're basically to enable processing of high values, how they could do, and that's where they are applying a lot of technologies. The banks have applied technologies, right? And then they're getting their operational efficiency with their bank. And the risk management and compliance that is related to getting your running your bank. So what they have not done much is that they have not done much in terms of how the end consumer himself gets benefited from the banking services, right? They would have done a few things, that they would have created a portfolio management tool that will help you, a wealth manager will come and show you and those sort of things. But they haven't really gone to the great level of innovations that is directly affecting the consumer, right? Most often you will see a DSA agent coming in and asking about loans, and do you really know need a loan? The banks really don't have to do that, because they have all their person's financial data and exactly they know how all these things, but they just are not able to unearth that data and try and figure out what really the customer needs, right? So they haven't been able to do much of innovations, right? And not enough technology usage to understand customers and his financial data. So I'm just purely going to talk more from a consumer's perspective. So if you really look at it, the banking industry is affected by few areas. One is the global trends, right, and regulations. I'll tell you when I mean by global trends. There are different ways of lending that are coming through. There are different ways of doing getting money, doing transfers. Everything that those are changing. Payments have been changing, right? So there are trends that will eventually come in India as well, right? And regulations are also changing with respect to internet banking and things like that. How many of you would have heard about simple now? Yeah. So these are actually basically the internet banks. They're
online banks.
Yeah, online banks. They don't have branches or anything, and a lot of things these kinds of things have been started, and these things will change quite a bit in terms of how the banks will operate. The consumerization, as I mentioned earlier, is that people are expecting, the expectation of a consumer is high, especially the millennial generation. The expectation is high. You can, from your phone, you can order your gadgets, order your this thing, get your addresses, everything from your phone. You can do everything. Why they have to go for a bank or doing anything else, right? So the expectation in terms of consumers are going to change because the things around us are completely changing. And then obviously democratization of technology is that now today if you want to start a startup, it's almost cost less. All you need is your laptop or Wi-Fi router, and which obviously Airtel will give it for free for 500 rupees if you give and you have a connection, and you are done, right? You have a mobile phone and you are done, right? And or if you want to host your the stuff, Microsoft Azure, sign up for BizTalk, and then you will get free hosting for 45,000. They will give it for free because they really want the startups to get started out. You need some space. That's all you need. And most of the people in the beginning, couple of if you are 2 or 3, you can just work out of your bedroom and then you have a startup build. Right? So, and in terms of using any of the technology, right from machine learning algorithms, they are all available on. You go to Azure or even to that extent Amazon, everywhere. You can just clean you can straight away use the API and you can start using these stuff. Right? You can get your Hadoop algorithms running. So it's fairly easy. I mean, not in terms of to say that ideas and building software and all of that, but in terms of your barriers to set up have been getting destroyed, right? In terms of barriers of getting set up is completely getting destroyed, right? Especially with the cloud and Wi-Fi and things like that, it's extremely easy. Right? So we started off, and then Paytm really helped us. They said, okay, we have some desks. I really want to help. We really want to help startups, and then I give you 2 desks, and 2 of us went and started working there. We just use their Wi-Fi and our laptops, and that's how we started. Then we wanted to go really big, and then one of our friends said, okay, come and take one and pay some money. And that's how we are. And we could go on there for another year or so before we get into that really big money. The money really would be required when we get developers and things like that. So the democratization of technology is really helping in terms of building new products, and that's not to say it affects only the banking industry. It affects all the industry. The banking which has been left over is starting to come into the Okay, so in terms of, as I said, consumers' expectations, as I said, the things have changed, the way we do what we do, the way we do purchases and anything else, right? So it's completely changed now. And then doing the same thing, I mean, your internet banking is no different from branch on your phone, right? And it's not really changed much. It's exactly, you'll have to do the same thing, right? People want freedom of choice, right? Even if they are not good at choosing it, and you've got to appear that you are giving the right choices for them, right? They really want the choices. They really want the stuff that they need at it. I mean, today banks, you go to banks, how do they do their loans and things like that? They design products and then say these are the available stuff and let's take it, right? The branch manager has some certain quotas. He has targets to sell this much of loan. Whether you need it or not, he will try to sell it. right? Whether you need it or you enter, the moment you enter the bank, you tell, sir, you need an insurance, right? They tell you that you need a ULIP, and ULIP is the worst product that anyone can have, right? Because it is, they are just designing the stuff and then just trying to force upon you, and then nothing that they are really looking at what really consumer is needing, right? And you obviously want on time when you want, and so all of this at your own terms, right? And we could get into a situation where the products are very clearly designed for a person. The loan terms are designed to you, right? These are your obligations, these are your things, and this is the way you want to live your lifestyle, and this is what I want, and I want exactly these terms to be there. And why not? You could design a product. This should happen slowly. This can happen. You don't have to go by the norms that have been established and go by the norms that at the most, whatever, instead of one product, there have been 5 products, but it has to go tailored to a person and it need to happen. Cost, obviously, and given that branch model of banking and things like that, the cost is extremely high. So most of us not realize that we pay huge money in terms of fees and commissions to banks. Okay. And people also want an untethered experience. What I mean is that I'm in the middle of the meeting and somebody is calling me and asking me, do you want something? That's not your touch point to the customer. You really need to be there when the person really needs it, not when he doesn't need it, right? You have to be completely unobstructed, right? You can't be obstructing inside and try and get into what this is. So you have to be there, but at the same time you should be completely non-intrusive, right? And that's what people are being expected. So technology I talked about. These are the technologies that have been coming around, and slowly will shape the stuff, right? So if you really look at why is banks not very successful in terms of this thing. So one is that they are stuck with a huge legacy system which they have been maintaining. And any innovations that they have to build it does require a lot of resources in terms of upgrading their own technology and things like that. The organizational cultures are different. They're all, Economist has recently published an article wherein how the banking industry is getting changed. This is that nerds have been going to change the entire banking industry. That banking, when you think, is a pinstriped, suited person, right? And then that really is not going to this thing take a long time. So what I mean to say is that they have certain set of cultures and things like that that's going to become in their own advances that they can offer. And resources, obviously banking resources are diverted for the compliance, security, and a lot of other things. The low risk appetite by board level, what I mean by that is, and this is obviously not my slide, I got it from somewhere, is that today some innovative payment product can raise a funding of $20 to $30 million, right? And can be completely without profit for 2 or 5 years, right? Not even making any money. Can a bank's board say that, hey, I'm creating this new group, I'm going to give out $40 million to this, and these people don't have to get any profit for 4 or 5 years. That level of risk appetite will not be there to the existing companies. So that itself will have a huge impediment in terms of them coming up with. At the best, they can buy the innovations, right? But they will not be able to internally do innovations will be a lot more tougher. So technology, as I said, mobile is actually presenting a huge opportunity in terms of the future in the technology, right? The biggest thing is that mobile presence is like availability of location data, right? And the person's, and of course, you have informations and all of that is there. But location data is so rich, it actually creates a huge context about persons, about the person, personality, what he does, and where he goes, and what are the things he's doing, right? It helps us hugely in understanding the person. Omnipresent, what I mean is that it's always there when you want to provide some service to the customer, and the customer also knows that it is always there. And that gives you a huge advantage in terms of technology. Big data, obviously any finance or transactions and things like that are going to generate huge amounts of data, right? And then our ability to process the data with process and things like there is a massive growth in the non-financial data that is directly impacting your finances. That is a lot to do with your completely data that is unstructured data, right? Your social feeds, your this thing, you go and write something, you do something, all kinds of, you are living your digital blueprints across everywhere, right? And one has to be constantly mining that. Of course, there are various companies that have been mining, but being able to mine that data and being able to apply that to a financial issue, because we are all creatures of our own. I mean, our financial decisions are not in a silos, they are also related to a lot of other things, and then we should be able to take all that data and being able to apply and help the person with the financial choices. So that's so all of this put together, machine learning, natural language processing analytics is a way for anyone to understand the customer and provide the choices that really is customers looking for.
So the last part, machine learning and NLP and analytics. So are this like startups are now leveraging the existing platforms offered by Google or Amazon, or they are in their own algorithms?
Okay, so see, I don't know how much you understand about this machine learning and stuff like that. Ultimately, there are maybe 2 or 3 algorithms that do machine learning. Right? It's all your categorizations, your this thing, your all those things. Right? I mean,
no, I'm talking about from the library perspective, like Stack or Google, whatever they have. Just given the APIs, and you just feed the data to them. But from the understanding perspective, how much you should understand or learn the algorithm inside it. You need to learn on the
okay, I'll tell you. So here is what it is, right? When you want to apply machine learning or any natural language processing or any other techniques, you got to have some good amount of basics about understanding how to apply it, even though a lot of things will be straight available as services, right? So you should be able to understand the clustering algorithm. You should be able to understand what the clustering algorithm will do. You should be able to understand those partitioning and things like that and all that stuff. You should be able to understand when the algorithm returns the results, when to believe that algorithm result and when not to believe algorithms. When is the algorithms is overtrained versus undertrained and all sorts of things that are there, right? So, but that's not a huge, right? So it's not that today you have to sit and write all those bits and bytes for you to try and do that, right? Once you understand those things at a high level, I'm sure that you go to Coursera and then you find some 10 courses, pick those up and then finish the reading, and then you are up with the machine learning stuff, right? Go to Coursera, get some natural language, there are 2-3 courses, you read stuff, and then you are up with your natural language capability. So those levels of basic you will obviously need, right? I mean, what it will give you, give an algorithm, it will enter lots of data, you will come back with, and this is the result, and this is the precision, this is the F score, right? So you at least to be able to understand those kind of things, right? And for you to be able to make a. What I mean to say is that earlier you possibly would have spent a year to write an algorithm to understand a particular stuff. Today it is maybe about 2 days job, right? Once you have the data, it's about 2 days job for you.
To write the algorithm.
You don't have to write the algorithm, you actually call those scikit-learn algorithms and things like that and give the data. As long as once you build the data, you just allow it to process and the results will come. So, but only thing is how to interpret what to give and what, that's what is your this thing.
So, talking about the last point, for the machine learning thing. So my question to you is that how are startups taking this data, the non-structured data, and helping the banks?
Okay, so I'll
give an example.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Right? So we haven't yet done a lot of this stuff, but this is all as a part of our plan as well, right? So currently we install, our app is installed on your phone. Within about 10 minutes we give you all the understanding. We understand your finances, when your salaries come, when your salaries go up, how much you work, how much you spend, right? And we start within about a day's time, we start giving out offers and recommendations what you should be using. Okay. I mean, that's how we are able to apply it, right? So it is not exactly the traditional way, exactly what it has been there, but we have to look the stuff around and then you can help it out. Okay. For example, we are able to make recommendations about what sort of a loan this particular person is going to need. Right? we are able to make recommendations about what sort of this thing we should be doing. So those sort of things are possible.
So this is more from the consumer perspective.
Right. So ultimately, whether you do banking or whatever, so ultimately the person at the end has to get benefited, right? And he has to get benefited. So you have to figure out what really works for him, right? And that's where the gap is in that the banks always think of it as a loans and deposits, and then they only offer the stuff that they are capable of offering.
This type of caption is like the end user uses entire data, or we have some kind of
Okay, I will tell you what we currently do actually. So we have a couple of mechanisms to gather the data. One is that we ask you to know that part is not fully integrated in the product. We'll ask you to enter all your bank details, right? Of all the banks that you have, accounts you have, so that we can get the data and start analyzing your behavior. The other option is that we actually, as soon as we install, we scrape your SMSs, and from there itself, we actually get your banking accounts. So we know that.
I have a question. You said that you ask bank accounts, and from that you get the data. But that is again a regulatory affair. I mean, getting this bank account will not fetch you data because that has to go through a regulatory process to get the data. Simply getting an account number will not able to give you the data which is
We actually ask you to enter your banking username password.
Oh, okay.
And then we go to the banks and then get all the data. Get all the data, right? Obviously, I mean, we don't get anything related to transactions. We'll never be able to do a transaction on your behalf and things like that. So all those things obviously we take care of it, and then we have a third-party company to do all this. Okay. But coming back to SMS, so actually we read the SMS and then we have a complete data about the finances.
Why is security not featuring as a bullet here?
It is there. I mean, I am not saying that it is not there. So security is there are two things, right? One is anybody you are giving out something, right? Banking is always highly regulated stuff, right? So extent that you have to get through a regulation, you definitely will not be able to accept it because of the you got to get a banking license for you to accept it because if you want to do a transaction or anything, you got to have all sort of banking security stuff that you have to maintain it only in banks to do a transaction from a bank. And then the security for the banks themselves, right, to be 100% secure bank. So I'm not talking about replacing them in bank. I'm talking about extending that and innovating further, right? So I don't think we are talking here about all the new age companies to come and replace the banks themselves. So banks are highly capitalized and huge balance sheet. They have massive in this thing. It's not an easy for someone to come and replace them. At the best, the companies like Simple and what they have done is that they underlie on a banking license of another company which already has a license, and you create a face for it, right? And then you create a banking on top of that using that particular bank's license, and then you do your core banking with that particular bank. Right.
No, but what I know is Moven is run as an independent unit, and all of them, Moven Simple, are all FDIC approved, the federal government, US.
Correct,
So,
but they have underlying, they are tied up with the banks, and that's how they get
the
the
Simple
license.
is something that has been acquired by some bank.
They now
But
got acquired.
Moven works as an independent unit. It's a branchless, chipless banking. That's what they call. So they don't have any physical branch.
Yeah.
Correct? That is the right thing, right?
Yeah. But the ultimate banking will happen. They will go and they will tie up with the people who already have a banking license. See, it's easy for me now. Let's say there are so many banking licenses that are available. A lot of banking licenses are available. So I will go and tie up with some small bank. Right? They already have a platform to do the transactions and everything. And then I write on top of that and I create an internet bank.
No, so you mean to say I should be having a Bank of America account, and then I will get onto Moven Bank. Is that
No.
Then
You could have a real bank account of Moven account itself, but the account will be managed by underlying bank that is this thing. So you get on top of that. Okay, Moven will offer. It's just a front end, right? It's like a branch.
Yeah, that's what they have. Their all kind of physical. They have all those online apps and this thing which.
So that's how. So we talked about this as well. I'm going to reverse. Okay. Now, if you really look at this, is coming from economists. There is a huge increase in the interest in the fintech in the area, I mean across the world, especially. Obviously, everything will be led by US. US you would see. So, in terms of funding that are happening to the new companies coming into the fintech area is increasing significantly, and this is just a beginning, and I think this is going to go huge as time comes. Right? All the cycle lasts. So now some companies which have done things differently by way of using technology. This is asset management by using the robo assets. What we are doing the entire asset management itself with a completely machine-based stuff. So these are the companies who are pioneering in doing that. Wealthfront has been highly successful in doing this, right? And there are a lot of companies who are doing that stuff. On payments, these are various companies, right, which have been doing a lot of innovations in the payment areas. There is Zoom, Stripe, Venmo, Square, PayPal, obviously, Braintree. So Bitcoin obviously is another different sort, but this thing is it's a completely it's all still out in the open, like what would happen, whether Bitcoin or similar to Bitcoin, something similar to income. And then entire transaction, way of doing transactions is to change, the currency will change. Yeah.
I have come across a lot of payments startups or payments companies like PayPal. How does it differ from each other? I mean, how they're
so it's all about transactions so far you have done was either through banks or credit cards, right? That was a key way of doing the transactions for you. And then PayPal came in first and they started the internet transactions being very easy. And now with the mobile devices, that is actually throwing out a huge opportunity in terms of how people do payments, right? So A, the way how you could do it, B, in terms of ease and where, how and this thing, and the B in terms of the cost of doing the transaction, right? So obviously the credit card way of doing transactions is pretty expensive, right? The credit cards and Visa and Master take a lot, and the banks and your settling banks and so many things that involved in it. So there is innovations in terms of the cost of transaction, and there is innovations in terms of how you do transactions.
Yeah, I understand they're different, they're convenience over the traditional mode of payments. But within them, I have like PayPal was there, and then Paytm has come. So how?
Okay, so obviously, sorry, actually I missed closer to home the Paytm. Paytm is not really a payment sort of a thing, it's a wallet, it's a digital wallet.
Right.
Okay, so you load up your money and the money is there in the digital wallet. And that wallet you can pretty much use it anywhere, right? And that's sort of and they have been very successful. They are now their transactions are across the IRCTC transactions. IRCTC was the first, and they are now, I don't know whether I'm allowed to speak the valuations that they have. They have got billion plus valuations now, right? The Paytm recently, their fundraising got billion plus valuations. So they have been very successful in terms of taking the mobile, just a recharge as an example, to the making it all the payments possible through the mobile wallet.
Yeah, but say, take PayU. PayU is a payment gateway,
Right.
just like PayPal. So both are the payment gateways at the end of the day, and I don't know from the transaction fee perspective whether any difference is there or not, but from an end customer, it's basically the same.
Right. So there are a lot of people. I mean, see, mobile payments has been pretty interesting, right? Your wallet, you have many things, and there is the next slide. There are a few things, right? M-Pesa and things like that. They have changed the completely way how you do transactions, right? And then Apple wants to get into doing transactions. Google wants to get into doing transactions. Right? Starbucks as a payment mechanism has been very successful in the US. So a lot of this will start. I mean, when you do a pay by Paytm, you're actually bypassing the bank, right?
So pay by PayU or Even Paytm or PayU Money, they all take the credit card or your net banking details and.
No. See, what happens is pay by Paytm. I charge a 500 rupees in my Paytm wallet, right? And then I pay 200 to him, 200 to him, 200 to him. Earlier, these would have been 3 transactions going through the credit card company to get settled. Right now, it doesn't have to do that.
It's one transaction for the.
Correct? So today I have to charge it, but the day will come when they will be allowed to accept the deposits and things like that. That time they will completely detach from the rest of the banking. Okay? So you got to realize that it's actually not just limited there, actually it starts growing from there.
So one question related to that is some of these things like Paytm wallets, they are operating as they don't have all the licenses yet, right? Like there are
Yes,
some
so
restrictions.
See, banking, finance and all of that is highly regulated. And they're regulated for a good reason. Obviously, and all of money need to be safe, right? But the regulations also will change as the things evolve, right? There are now, the internet banks are going to be allowed in India. So there are obviously the regulations, how to deal with them will start coming in, right?
So can you help sort of illustrate what's the difference between what a Paytm can do and what a internet bank can do?
Okay, so internet bank is nothing but it's a bank which doesn't have any branch or anything, right? You can open an account, you can create. The moment you open an account, they will call you, give you a credit card and things like that, and that's it, right? And then your banking is done through them, right? So that's how the model operates.
One application I can tell you, Uber used to previously has to ask for a credit card, and anytime you can directly, you don't have to enter the security code again.
So
yeah,
I'll take that this thing, right? So basically, when Uber wanted to come in, right? Across the world, they don't ask for second-time authentication, right? But the Indian government doesn't allow to. Indian regulation doesn't allow you to do at the time of filing. You still need authentication from the user. User's acceptance is necessary, right? And Uber wanted to change their business model, and then they decided Paytm was the best because Paytm will not need.
So I guess I'm wondering from a consumer perspective, Paytm is effectively an internet bank. You put your money in Paytm and it works just like an internet bank. For you, me, it makes no difference. The money is already online. I use it to do whatever I want.
Just improving your
You don't get an interest.
Okay, I think, so basically, you can start paying your vegetable vendor, you can start doing a lot of things because the microtransactions are all up this as you bring down the cost of transaction. So those things will start exploding, right? You could share money with your friends and things like that. All of those things will start because, imagine just giving 100 rupees to my friend through a credit card. It's not possible. Right? So these, the innovations actually these will lead to allow you to learn a lot of things. Okay, I don't know. I think I'll try to quickly finish. And peer-to-peer lending. This is a new stuff that is getting on. So I need money, and he has extra money, right? We could actually start creating a marketplace. There are marketplaces now where you can actually peer-to-peer lending can happen. So obviously this will lead to a lot of credit risk and things like that, but using your lot of data that has been gathered, we can try and assess the credit worthiness of the person who is coming onto your platform and then allow only him to take the lending and things like that. But these things have been slowly started, and Lending Club has been quite successful. I don't know the number of people, but they are able to do.
Is there regulations for that also?
So there will be always regulations, right? And there will be always loopholes. The way to look at it. Regulations are.
Banking rules will be applied today, like it's not.
So banking rules generally come into picture the moment you accept money. Right? The moment you accept money from somebody, this thing will start coming.
So how is this different from the credit card, right? Because we do online.
No. This is like Jagan wants to lend money, right? He has extra money. He has extra money, and obviously Jagan is a very rich person. He has extra money. He wants to lend it, and the bank is giving him 9% interest, right? And here is a person who is taking a personal loan at about 15%, 16%, right? And then obviously he tells Jagan that hey, he can lend at 12%, and this guy will get at 13%. Right? So you are bypassing entire institution around it.
No, but again, somebody has to coordinate this, orchestrate it.
That's what these companies are doing. So they are creating a marketplace for the lenders and the people who want to take money.
So the transaction will be direct between the lender.
So, but are they holding any accountability between, say there is a default? Are they party to this agreement?
I don't know in detail. See, basically, so that you got to feel comfortable with lending to him. You got to see what happens is a lot of the time people need 100 rupees, 200 rupees, and things like that. And this small times, for some lenders it doesn't matter. Okay, 100 rupees gone, but I will get another 200 rupees. I get a problem, right? And plus, you can actually mine now the data of the person who is lending. For example, in our platform, I know the entire credit history of the person. So I can ascertain his worthiness. Right? And then there are companies like Unga which do a payday loans. Right? Which you would have heard in the old times when people go to Saukars that you are closer to payment and then that guy will charge you hefty money for you a loan just till you get your salary. Right? So Unga is the kind of company that has been they are giving something called a payday loan, a loan till your payday comes. So there are innovations happening in the lending areas. Personal finance. So this is where we operate actually. The main that was the early one, the first one to get started on, right? Personal finance has been most boring stuff, right? And then obviously people have been able to do bill, check, and deliver money. There are some examples that are open, and a lot of these things are going to come now in the India as well. So in summary, consumerization is affecting the entire ecosystem, every industry, including banking. Technology is enabling the new players. The smart innovations are leading to the new products and the new way of doing banking. So, thank you for listening to me. If you have any questions, I will be happy to take.
I have a question on the on the way to do something new in consumer banking industry. It is important to have quite a lot of knowledge about the financial industry. So, is it possible for someone how someone who is outsider to the finance industry to understand the pain areas? Probably your example is your
okay, so most of us, at least the guys who are good at technology, will understand as a consumer himself, you will know what really is required. Right? And in terms of banking terminology and things like that, you need to pick up some in that area. But I don't think it is going to be such an easy because if you are going to do something, you don't really have to, if you are doing something related to consumer banking, you don't really have to understand the corporate financing. Okay? So, you don't need that level of expertise, you would need a very narrow, and that I think you should be able to gather it or get some advice or get somebody on board who understands that.
So, people who are already building software for the traditional type of banking, such as maybe Finacle or iFlex or Oracle Finance, how are they responding to some of these new ways of banking itself? Because this is not about new features for their banking, but this is completely a different use cases that are now emerging in the market.
So, banking definitely also has been as you can see that ICICI Bank has been doing something for wallet. ICICI, I don't know, that does a lot of business, right? HDFC Bank has got, Chiller app. So, they are also responding to some certain ways because they just can't be so, when you talk about Finacle and all that, that is core banking, right? That is different from the stuff that is offering and all of that stuff. So, they are also doing the stuff. So
you're saying that all of this will be still on top of some core banking, the front end or the
touch but there will be enough places wherein the banking will get out of the way. Right? As I said, the Paytm, when you do a transaction to Paytm, banking is out of the way. The moment right now they still will have to get their money through bank only. You can load your ATM only through net banking or through credit card. You can load it, right? But at some point in time, they will get something that will allow us to do it directly. At that time, they are off from bank.
Yes, you were saying that if Paytm got some kind of banking license, they can hold the money and that bank.
So the banks are also are having a lot of different kind of licenses. There is something called a payment bank license. So Paytm is obviously applied for that and a lot of things
Kotak also offers a service called Kotak Money Watch. And the way I understood your simple bill is it on the similar lines? Because Kotak Money Watch also, you basically add all your bank accounts that are there and then it tracks all your expenses, incoming, outgoing and all.
Right. So the biggest thing is that when we talk to the personal finance management, PFM tools, right? PFM is very good. You really don't want to keep looking at your Excel. Initially in the beginning, it makes a lot of sense and you start thinking it is good and all of that. But what we are trying to offer is that take out as much of calculations out of your head as possible. Right? You only give the right relevant choices in front of you that you need to act upon.
Even from this Snapdeal, shops make one Snapdeal and only power or only on that Snapdeal only providing goods to the customers.
I am not aware of it. But so innovations are going to happen. Because the e-commerce companies have a biggest need for them to provide the most directly to their customers. Because they want to enable people to take, if they need to buy something they want, they will to make the payments.
Just a question, follow-up question on what Ritu Mani said earlier. For technologists, if you have no exposure to any banking domain, how do we understand that there are opportunities existing?
Yeah, so that was my whole idea for people to come and realize there are opportunities existing. If they really are looking for who and do something, we have property to do. And that's the only way. And then basically think from a technologist perspective, what way the technology can change some of these things other than actually doing the same thing.
So I had a question relating to your startup journey. So you're a consumer-facing application, and one of the difficult things, at least it appears to be in India, is how do you get consumer adoption of products like this? Like if you're a bank, you have the wherewithal to go out to advertising. But as a young company, you mentioned two people sitting in an office, in somebody else's office. How do you get attention? How do you get consumers to adopt your technology?
So it is obviously hard, right? You've got to create a space where WhatsApp came in, got created its own space, and then especially with finance, it's a tough thing. I was earlier talking to Jeremy, right? Finance is a boring subject. I can't easily get someone to download my app, entering So we are looking at various ways of digital marketing and things like that, writing some articles and things like that, trying to get information. So that's a part of marketing journey that we have to go through in order for us to create that.
Can you talk about your early days? How did you get to see your first 100 customers?
We haven't yet got the first 100 customers, right? So we are currently doing an audit policy. But okay, I mean we have done enough of our own background work. So we have built a database of lakhs of LinkedIn accounts and things like that. We can blast off messages and things like that. So we have done some good amount of work. We have also created where we can create post articles that will go on to all these people's pages, and then they can read about it and then they can download it. So things like that you will have to do. So you will have to create growth that way. That is true with any product. I mean, it's probably a little more difficult in case of
Sorry. Go ahead.
What difference do you think the Google mentoring
So I would say that one is that you certainly will have some sort of feedback, and you always need some sort of validation that needs to happen. And there are various facets of doing a startup. And most of the time, technologists actually look for a perfect product that they want to build, right? And you just don't get out of it. So that does help us in terms of trying to figure out that's not just that's probably 10 to 20% of the effort. And there are other things that you really need for you to be your product to be successful. So some of those things you get to learn.
What are the research techniques that you use to arrive at your problem statement for Simplify?
So good amount of it was hunch, right? So once we had that hunch, actually, then we started talking to people in the industry, right? We have done things, including we talk to people like Perfios who are already provided personal finance. but of course they need different data. So we talked to a lot of people. We talked to, in fact, there was a company called, I forget the name of the company in US, which was competing with Ming, with Faye, and make a person close. We talked to his founder, and then in fact we got some code also from them in terms of things like that. So it's all, once you are into it, the system will teach you, right? So you can try and figure it out.
That's all.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thanks a lot, Suresh. Because just now we recently had a bit alpha release, right? And he was very patient, spending time with us. It was really an awesome moment, aha moment for many of us. And so with this, we have come to the end, and I will request our Director of Academics, Mr. Ramanan, to give the moment to Suresh. Suresh to write your mail ID so that people can interact with you for any kind of thing.
Suresh.Mali@simple.com. We also take interns and things like that.
Yeah, so outside we'll have a networking session, we'll have tea also. So please feel free to ask questions and whatever.